Hey pups, welcome back. Today we're going to be going over load balancing in Satisfactory and how spreadsheets can help you manage your factory. I know that sounds real exciting, right? I mean, it sounds exciting for me because I'm an Excel jockey in my day job, but it may not be for all of you. But if you have access to a basic spreadsheets program like Excel, like a full copy of Excel or Office 365, or just the free web-based Excel that you get if you have a OneDrive account, or if you have access to numbers on a Mac or any of the many open source spreadsheet programs, or even Google Sheets, you can do stuff like this. Now, what you're seeing right here in front of me is the actual spreadsheet I built. I've actually posted this on Reddit, the link to this spreadsheet on Reddit before. I think I posted it back around December. If you want to go find it and download it, you can. But I'll be uploading this to Google and posting a link in my description for this video. So yeah, you don't need to go hunting on Reddit for it. But we're gonna go through this in a minute. Then we'll talk about load balancing, Satisfactory, how to balance your resources, and the two major ways to do that. And yeah, we're just gonna do some actual building today. So great, right? So now, first off, if you're new to Satisfactory, and this is what this video is geared towards, it's geared toward newer or more new players or inexperienced players. I'm sure most of you who, even if you're an inexperienced player, you're familiar with what your machines will tell you. So like here, I haven't connected up power to this Mark I miner yet, but this is sitting on a pure node of iron out here in the Dune Desert. And you can see here that the machine will tell you how much it's able to produce. This is the same with every machine in the game. It'll tell you either how much it produces or how much of a resource, an input resource or resources it takes to produce something else. And it also tells you like the power you need, and in the case that it takes fluids, like in the example of an oil or a fuel power plant, a coal power plant, an oil refinery, or the blender, it will tell you how much fluid it has and how much of it needs per minute. So now you'll see two numbers here. It says here 1 iron ore, so every production cycle is generating 1 iron ore, and you'll see the cycle here is half a second. So that's how you wind up with 120 ore per minute. When I'm doing my production planning personally, and I'm not saying this is the way to do it, this is just the way I find it best to understand all of this and plan around it, is to look at everything in terms of how much do I need per minute. I could care less how much I need in a production cycle, which could be like a minute, it could be half a second. I mean, it just depends. So I just look at everything on a per minute basis and optimize to that. So yeah. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put us up here on the platform, and then we're going to switch back over to Microsoft Excel. And I am running Excel 365, so, I've got, if you're running like a perpetual license copy of Excel, it may look slightly different, but there we go. So this is the sheet I built. The way I set this up was that we have everything we want to build, and I feel like this is a pretty good cross section of what you want to build, maybe up through, for a decent sized mini factory, not like a kibitz level mega factory, but this would be a good set of parts that you could produce for a small to medium sized factory that would get you everything you need to start producing modular engines and adaptive control units and versatile frameworks to get into tier 7. So, yeah. And by the way, if you're a new player and you haven't gotten to the space elevator yet, the way progression works in Satisfactory is that once you build the space elevator, you take several of the basic parts that you're making, and you make a super complex part that you throw into the space elevator. When you have enough, you launch it, and it unlocks the next set of tiers, and then as you progressively unlock more things in the space elevator, you need more complex parts. So you start out only needing smart plates, which are right here, and per minute only require 2 reinforced plates and 2 rotors. That's really simple. And then you get 2 smart plates out. But then as you go on, you need to unlock, or you need to prepare auto wiring and versatile frameworks. I don't think I have versatile frameworks on this because when I built this, I had already just done versatile frameworks, so I didn't need to do it again. But basically, auto wire is a little more complex because you have to produce stators and cable to make auto wiring, and in turn, stators require, if I go over here, it requires steel pipes and wire. So you can see what I mean by that. It gets progressively more complex, and you know, that's one of the nice things about a spreadsheet, that it helps organize data, and it allows you to summarize things, roll it up, and make better decisions. So the way, like I was saying, the way I have the spreadsheet laid out is I have all these different parts I wanted to make in another save file, and I just loaded them in here, and you know, everything's here, everything I need per minute, what's coming out, and then in certain places I left notes that actually that's a wrong note right there, so we can just delete that. But in certain places and that's wrong, and that's wrong, and that's wrong. Okay, we're good here. And that's wrong. Oh wait, no, that isn't wrong. Okay. Yeah, in certain places I noted down here that I'm using alternate recipes. So again, if you're a new player and you haven't gotten too far into the game, sometimes you'll come across these crash drop pods, and if you have the stuff to open them up, like power or a specific resource, then you'll get a hard drive out of it that you can scan in the MAM, yes ma'am, and it will unlock alternate recipes. And sometimes the recipes are garbage, sometimes the recipes are very good, or sometimes the recipes are good but they're useless because you just don't have the production set up yet to do it. But like one of the greatest, one of 2 alternate recipes I'll point out is the one you can see here for circuit boards, which you unlock in tier 6, I believe. Or is it tier 5? I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyways, you unlock circuit boards as a stepping stone to being able to build computers in the manufacturer, and circuit boards are built in the assembler. And here we have an alternate recipe, which is really great, because the base recipe only produces like 5 of them per minute. But with this recipe, the silicone board, we just throw some copper sheets and some silica in there, and we get 12.5 of them per minute. That is amazing, because the base computer recipe requires 24 circuit boards per minute. So you just slap down 2 of those assemblers and you're great. You're really good to go there. Anyways, that's just kind of my convention here. The spreadsheet still works the same regardless of whether you're using the plain as intended recipe or if you're using an alternate recipe. I just chose to note in certain cases where I was using an alternate. So if you hit the plus boxes here, what I did when I set this spreadsheet up is I grouped all these cells. So the first set of cells here are the inputs. So these are just basically the total resources that go into making whatever it is I'm looking at. So I use just a lookup command, and I'm not going to go into how the lookup function works. If you want a more in-depth explanation of that, just look around on Google or YouTube. Those explanations are a dime a dozen, so I'm not going to go over them here. But it just basically matches the name, goes here, and it multiplies it by the number of production buildings I want to build. And so that for a given item, it'll tell you how much stuff you need flowing into it in the first place. And then down here, it'll show your output. And then off to the side, it just sums across everything, and then we come over to this production summary sheet. So you can view everything in total. So you got your total inputs, your total outputs, and this column called coverage here, this just basically indicates, you know, are you making enough of a given item to cover what you need further up your production chain. And then, but, you know, for the purposes of this, I just kind of ignored things like iron ore or deuterium, because, you know, I can just slap down miners all day to get as much of it as I need, so it's just kind of irrelevant. But, and then I have some little check metrics down here at the bottom. So, yeah, that's just an overview of how it works. So, in a minute, we'll start using this as we go through this, but now I want to talk about belt setups. And if you've watched any of the YouTubers who play Satisfactory, like Total Eclipse, Kibitz, and the series on Let's Game It Out, you'll see some really good setups, and particularly in the case of Let's Game It Out, you'll see some really bad setups, like the Cocoon of Death. I'm not kidding. He actually routed all of his nuclear waste through this giant conveyor belt cocoon, and his base is horribly irradiated, and yeah, it's totally worth a watch, because not only that video, but all the videos on the Satisfactory series he did are just really just enjoyable to watch. So we'll be building something right here in a moment. We'll just build a basic little iron production setup. But we're yeah, so I guess let's just get into it. Now, I built, in this particular save, I started working over in the northern forest out there to the west. And at some point I'll do a video where I show off that base. But right now we're just going to start building out a basic iron production line. And I'm going to go over the two types of conveyor belt setups you can do. These are very broadly called manifolds and overflows. A manifold system is basically where you take a certain amount of a resource that's coming in per minute, and you divide it evenly so that each machine that's connected to that incoming line gets exactly the amount it needs per minute. So, in this example, we have a pure node here with a Mark I miner, so that's producing 120 iron per minute. Now, we can go here, and we're going to select a smelter. Now, a smelter can process 30 iron per minute. So, 120 divided by 30 is 4. Yay, math. So, we're just going to line these up. This is the thing I do like about building on foundation, or I really prefer about building on foundations versus just building on the ground, because you get the nice little grid alignment lines and everything. So anyways, I told you about manifolds. The second setup that we could do is called an overflow setup. That's where you just take, you say, I need X amount of resources going to all these machines in total, and I'm just going to push it through and just split it off as I need to. And both methods have their pros and they have their cons, which we'll talk about later. But suffice to say, manifold setups are less likely to back up, whereas overflow setups can potentially back up, and machines that are at the tail end of that flow of resources will take a long time to get the resources they need. So now, what we're going to do for these smelters is we are just going to build a nice little setup here. And it looks like I made my foundations a little too short to really do this accurately. So we're just going to enlarge that a little. Yeah, and it would help if I could actually aim properly. Alright. So we're going to grab our splitters here, and I'm just going to align it here. There we go. Alright, and we're jumping off the lookout tower there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Mark I belts to connect these up to the splitters, just because, one, the conveyors, or the smelters here, don't need more than 30 resources per minute coming in. we go. Some nice little curves there. And do that. Woo. Tell you what, we'll just try and get that one nice and... Ooh, that... There we go. Perfect. Alright. Now, what we're going to do is build another splitter here, and then I'll kind of go through the numbers of what's going on here. And I'm being a little less consistent with what I'm doing here. I'm using Mark II belts to connect these two splitters up before they get to the setup there that split them off, and then since the output of the miner is 120 ore per minute, we want a belt that can handle that, which is the at a minimum the Mark II belt. So a Mark II belt or higher can handle this output very easily. So what did we just do? We took ore that's going to be coming out here at 120 per minute. It's going to come up here, and it's going to go into this first splitter. Now, the splitter has 3 outlets, but we're only using 2 of them. So instead of dividing the ore into 3 streams of 40 per minute, it's going to divide it into 2 streams of 60 per minute. And then when it goes into this next row of splitters here, it's going to further divide it into 2 streams per splitter of 30 per minute, which is exactly what we need in the smelters, because if we go here and select the iron recipe, it takes 30 iron ore per minute and gives 30 iron ingots per minute. Great. So now, our ultimate goal here is just to show an example of a basic production process. So what we're going to do, after I just play with these foundations a little tiny bit, is we're going to switch back to Excel, because we're going to actually use Excel to do a schematic layout of our production chain here. So first off, we're going to use these planning sheets here. So we have the constraint of 120 iron ore per minute. So we need to balance the system with the right number of constructors to get rotors and reinforced plates, but not exceeding 120 iron ingots per minute. So first, we're going to take care of our plates. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go up and say that I want so we're going to say we want 1 rotor assembler, and let's see, where's reinforced plates? We're going to say we want 1 of those. So we'll come over here to this production sheet. Now it's saying that we need 30 iron plates, which is for the reinforced plates. We need 20 rods for the rotors, and we need 160 screws in total for both the reinforced plates and the rotors. Great. So now let's figure that out. So a constructor can take in 30 with the vanilla recipe. It can take in 30 iron ingots per minute and turn that into 20 iron plates per minute. So we're going to say we just need 2 of these. We could underclock two constructors, or overclock 1 constructor to get the 30 iron plates per minute we need exactly. But what we're going to do is we're going to keep our downstream production balanced and just kind of sort out any stuff at the top end of our production chain here. So in this case, it means that we would split off any excess iron plates into storage or an awesome sink. So if I come back over here to my production summary, yeah, you'll see there's the 10 excess iron plates we'll have in the system, which is fine. This is a basic setup. This is just kind of walking you through the concept. And you can see that that's going to take the output from 2 smelters, because each iron plate constructor will require 30 ore per minute. So now we're going to look at rods. We need Well, actually, let's look at screws first, because screws are going to be dependent on rods if we use the base recipe. So, we need 160 screws per minute, and the vanilla recipe for screws takes in 10 rods per minute and outputs 40 screws per minute. So, we just need 4 of these. Great. That divides really cleanly. Great. Now, where are my iron rods? There they are. So now it says we need 60 of these. Great. So let's look at this. It now says that we take in 15 iron per minute and outputs 15 rods. So this is great. This is what's nice about the early game production chains. They all divide out pretty cleanly. So as you're getting started, yes, you're going to have a few areas like the iron plate example here where the numbers don't work perfectly, but more or less through, at least up through tier 4, you're probably not going to encounter a lot of balancing issues. It's when you start getting into the more detailed production that you're going to wind up with weird numbers. Because like if you look at the computer, for example, you need 22.5 cable per minute. That's a really weird number. And heavy modular frames take 100 screws per minute. Computers take 130 per minute. So you're going to have, in cases like that, and screws in particular, you'll definitely want to use alternate recipes because you can get more bang for your buck out of them. So if you haven't ever unlocked it yet in one of your playthroughs, there's an alternate recipe called steel screws where you feed in like 5 steel beams and you get 260 screws per minute. It's a pain to balance, and it's tricky to flow it around your factory correctly. I mean, you can wind up either having too few steel beams to use, or too many screws to process, but that's really the only feasible way to do more advanced production. But anyways, we're going to keep working with the vanilla recipes, which divide out more cleanly. Now, we needed 60 rods per minute, so we're going to just say we need 4 of those. Great. And if I go back over here to my summary, now this tells me I need 120 iron per minute. And guess what? That is exactly the amount that we're getting off that pure node with that Mark 1 miner. So we can optimize our system to use this perfectly, and the only things popping out of it will be some excess iron plates, reinforced plates, and rotors. Great. So let's graph this out. I'm kind of of the school of measure twice, cut once. So this is where Excel gets really handy. Becomes really handy in managing a factory in Satisfactory, just beyond working with the numbers by themselves. So we can actually start building kind of a logical production layout here using Excel's tools, and you can do this a number of different ways. My personal preference is to work from left to right. So here, and whenever you see a number that I'm writing down in here, that's going to be per minute. So just FYI. So we have iron coming in at 120 per minute. So we'll go over here and smelter. We get 30 ore. So actually, I'm just going to call this. Yeah, and this is kind of, if you're worried about not having any experience with Excel, this is an area where it's just real easy to work with. I have a personal toolbar here, so to do like borders, you'll want to go to the Home tab and work around it this way. But like I said, Excel is what I spend 99% of my day job in, so I actually have a personal toolbar configured that has all my most frequently accessed things. So here we have 1 smelter. 2 smelters, 3 smelters, 4 smelters. Great. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to show the linkages between these using that manifold system that we built. So, oh, I actually did the wrong thing here. So, S and S. There we go. So, these are going to denote that these are splitters. And we're going to have one more S over here. Great. So, we're going to go to Insert, Shapes, and we're going to choose this little guy here. There we go. And we'll just copy that. And a lot of times when you're doing this in Excel, this is what I like to call the logical layout. This describes the logical flow of your production chain. It may not necessarily match the physical layout, and you'll wind up with some spaghetti that's pretty well organized, but still spaghetti nonetheless. So that's just an FYI. Okay, so we're going to have two constructors here. Yeah, there we go. There we go. We're just using Mark 1 belts there. Alright, and now we get to have fun with the rod production. So we're going to just move those up slightly. And I think we're going to need to build some more foundations here a little later. And I have blade jumpers on, so which is why I'm able to jump so high. No, I don't know what happened there. Okay, there we go. Like it or not, well, I just can't win, can I? Okay, we're just gonna hop on top of this constructor. And actually, I just really can't jump today, can I? Alright, here we go. Here we go. So we're just gonna build our iron rod production over here. And we'll just jump from machine to machine. 1, 2, 3. And 4. Great. So what I'll do And I think everything's set up now, so what we're going to do is just connect all of this to power. And we'll connect that, so we'll get some ore producing. Now, when I do a lot of build a lot of machines at once, I like to go around and just do a quick check for red lights to indicate, like, if I managed to miss a machine that needs a recipe set, and we see one right there. Oh, I didn't connect this to power. Well, that's a good thing we checked. There we go. It looks like I may have forgotten to do that one. And I see another 2 down here. Yeah, we didn't set these earlier. There we go. Great. So we're gonna start seeing stuff come through in a minute. Oh, there we go. There's the ore. So you can see here, this is what we were talking about earlier. 120 ore per minute comes in here, gets split off into 60 lines, and they get further split off into 430 lines. So you don't, in theory, you don't encounter any backups or anything like that. The only place where we'll potentially have problems is here on the iron ore or iron plate production. Now, for the final thing I'm going to do here is, just so we can watch it produce for a couple minutes, is we're just going to add some storage here. And, oh, I always go to the logistics menu for storage instead of organization. Satisfactory is the second most played game in my library at like 400 something hours, and you'd think I would remember that by now. But, yeah. Oh, for some reason that didn't align perfectly. Oh well, it happens. Ah, we can see screws coming! Look, 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 look! And yeah, you can see my lights. Yeah, I don't have lights over here, so that, because we just built that, so that's why. So what we'll do is we'll pop down a floodlight. And let's see, there we go. I love the floodlight. Yeah, look at all those screws go. And we're getting rods, so we're making a rotor. Yeah, look at that. And, yeah. You can see, yeah, and this is the disadvantage, like I mentioned, of an overflow system, because all the screw production, you can see the screw production is working perfectly. It's getting everything first. Oh, well, that's a problem. So yeah, basically, rods have to travel through all of this setup to get to rotor production, which, and the way this thing is going to work is it's just going to split off everything first. So if you have 5 rods enter the system, only one of them is going to make it to rotor production, which isn't great, because you're going to run out of stuff very quickly. Which is why, again, why load balancing is very, very good. Because then you don't hit that problem. Yeah, so we're producing stuff here. Yeah, so I think that about wraps it up. You know, we talked about the pros and cons of manifolds versus overflow, and there's honestly no right answer. There really isn't, because each one of them has their place in your factory setup. So just go with whatever you think is easiest, whatever you think fits best with what you're trying to do. And to be honest, I've had plenty of times where I've had grand dreams of having these perfectly load balanced setups, and by the time I get to it, I'm just like, no, oh, I'm just building an overflow system. I don't care at this point. I'm just building an overflow system, putting up walls, and forgetting about it. So, yeah. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you haven't already done it, paw that subscribe button and boop the like button so you don't miss out on more content, and including more fabulous Satisfactory videos. Ooh, sheen, sparkle, sparkle. Come on, there we go. Sheen, sparkle, sparkle. So, see you later, pups. Arrgh!